Thank you.
Election night, November 9th, 2016, Wichita, Kansas, 3:54 a.m. 5 televisions, each tuned to different channels, painted the penthouse suite at the Ambassador Hotel in flickering light, the shifts on the screens reflecting the eyes of 3 men anxiously watching. As the votes of one state after another came in, each man would glance furtively over his shoulder toward the nearest bedroom, its door open, darkened as though no one were in it. "It's been a dead heat," said one of the anchors. "The Electoral College vote and the popular vote were both evenly split between Redmond and Christopher all the way to the Pacific Coast time zone. The polls have been closed in Illinois for 7 hours now," said another anchor. "Right now, James Christopher leads, but if Illinois' 20 electoral votes go to Diane Redmond, she will win by 4 votes. If Illinois goes to Christopher, then he wins by a full 47. This could be a squeaker, like the 2000 election. I wonder if anyone is asleep tonight." Just after 4 in the morning, Central Standard Time, the final network announced a winner. "With the last precincts reporting," said the anchor, "we can now say that Diane Redmond has been elected the first female president of the United States with a presumed Electoral College vote of 267 to 271. The margin of victory is just 4. That's 1 electoral vote less than those separating Bush and Gore in 2000, when Bush won the Electoral College, but Gore won the popular vote." The only one of the 3 men on the couch who hadn't yet poured himself a fresh drink now stood up to do so. And as he did, he muted the final television. Exhausted, backs to the screen, the 3 men leaned on the bar, staring at anything but one another. None hazarded a glance toward the darkened bedroom. Finally, one of the men went over to the gaggle of remotes by the couch and ceremoniously turned off the televisions, as in an earlier, simpler time he might have put out the candles before retiring to bed. "Well," said the man with the remotes, "that's it. It's over." "The hell it is," said a voice from the threshold of the bedroom. Chapter 1, November 11th, 2016, Seattle. Matthew Yamashita stood in his graduate advisor's office, papers spread across a table at one side of the room. "Looks good," said his advisor, Duncan Calder, looking over Matthew's surveys. "Everyone signed up?" "Yeah, we'll begin on Monday. 1,076 telephone surveys. Each student has 9 electors to call. I gave a few of them who were especially keen, a couple more. You're worried." "Duncan, I'm freaking out." Calder smiled kindly. "You worked and reworked the survey. It's sound. Be proud of that." Calder considered putting a comforting hand on Matthew's shoulder, but decided against it. Professor Duncan Calder was 47 and handsome, with strong black Irish features and a penetrating gaze. His hazel green eyes could look either menacing or warm, a facility he used to great effect with undergrads and grad students alike, keeping them guessing endlessly whether he liked them particularly, liked everyone in general, or was a selfish, self-absorbed son of a bitch. Matthew was special in Calder's eyes. More than that, Matthew," continued Calder, "by using the class as your polling organization, you're giving undergrads a hands-on look at how polls are conducted. It's a unique opportunity for them. I'll make sure they know it. And listen, I often tell grad students not to forget that no one knows as much about their topic as they do. But Matthew, not only do you know more about this than anyone else, you're the first I'm aware to track electors nationally. You're the only one amassing data on who the Electoral College voters are." November 12th, 2016, Lewiston, Maine. A group of volunteer firemen looked at each other in astonishment as their truck rounded the last bend in the lane before what was left of the farmhouse. The neighbor who had called them ran toward the truck as it ground to a halt. Black smoke poured past the truck's headlights. As they unloaded the hoses, the neighbor called out, "He must still be in there." Silently, the firemen set about the only thing they could do, contain the fire. "This is his car," she repeated in horror. "He's still in there." The captain looked at what was left of the blazing house and shook his head at her, but not because he didn't believe her. She drew her heavy coat about her tightly and shivered, though within the ring of light created by the burning house, it was warm. November 12th, Bedford, Massachusetts. Traffic traveling west or east on Route 3 slowed to a crawl as cars were waved around the bend in single file. 10 cars drove west, then 10 east, past the squad cars and slowly dying road flares. But there was no more to see. The dead man lay 40 yards past the edge of the road. "Drunk, probably," said the state patrolman to the man and woman from the coroner's office who had arrived to take the body. "Barely any skid," he added, pointing back toward where deputies diligently measured and photographed each inch of asphalt up to the crest of the bend from which the dead man had launched himself. "Nice bike," said the first reporter on the scene, as the dead man's new-looking Harley Davidson was illuminated by a camera flash. In the red and blue strobe half-light, the workers from the coroner's office stood back from the county photographer, arms folded across their chests, each bearing an expression of frustrated impatience. "We get on with it now?" the woman asked. "Cold out here," the man added. "Let's get this drunk under wraps." What impressed Calder, but also rankled the most, was that these people had chosen the weakest point in the electoral process. They were relying on the apathy and ignorance of the citizens. At precisely the time when no one thought to look at what was going on, indeed when most thought the election was already settled, a small group had struck at the very heart of the process. If Matthew hadn't checked out the data he had come across by chance, they would have gotten away with it. And they still might. The integrity of the nation was in Calder's hands. Fear ebbed slightly as he was overwhelmed by indignation at the hubris of the criminals and anger. Politics is a dirty pursuit, of course. Everyone knew that politicians twist the truth even when they're not telling outright lies. But this was not some cynical exchange of rhetoric and trumped-up statistics to do with denying unemployment assistance in favor of funding something else. It was not about gutting environmental law for private gain. Those debates, however full of trickery or spin, were nevertheless just that, debates, and they were more or less overt, carried out before the public and in the public's name. This plot, though, was covert, a nationally organized threat to the integrity of the office of the president. It was secret, precise in its economy, and deadly in its pursuit of its goal. If the plot succeeded, the government would not legitimately derive its just powers from the consent of the governed. Calder had spent more than 20 years studying and teaching about elections, and while his primary interest was academic, and despite his stated ambivalence about the real world, that theory and practice was underpinned by an abiding, visceral connection to what it was all for, people, their rights, their lives and livelihoods, the just and lawful application and use of power. He found himself filled with outrage. He wondered again about who the conspirators were. That it involved the Republicans or the Republican Party was certain. The Democrats had nothing to gain and everything to lose. Calder couldn't see the Republican Party leadership doing something like this. It was too risky, far beyond the normal kind of dirty tricks the party might be likely to countenance. Did they know at the top level? Or had some private, well-heeled and well-connected set of ideologues seen this dirty plot as a means to get their way, abetted by the confusion wealth in American politics affords? Hours later, Calder was no nearer figuring out who was doing the killing and manipulation than when he sat down. Finally asked the bartender to call a taxi for him. The rain still fell in thick droplets. When the taxi arrived, the driver merely honked for Calder to get inside the car. The windows instantly fogged up as he flung himself on the back seat. He quickly scooted to the side opposite the driver, who had rolled down his window in order to see. Airport.